Hello everyone, welcome back to Easel Live. My name is Mo and I'm here from Inventables today. And today we're going to show you how to take your party to a new level. So we've been trying to think of some new ideas to do here at Easel Live and try to think of some different types of projects or ways to work with things that we've talked about before, but maybe are implementing them in a new way. And in thinking about these things, you know, party season is really coming up. We've got a lot of weddings coming up in the summer, graduation parties. There's always a birthday party going on for somebody somewhere. And Father's Day is also coming up. Mother's Day just happened. So I was looking for a way to kind of help make these parties something a little more special in your life. And we thought, well, why not? I mean, everyone loves cake, so why not do cake toppers? So here we are today, and we're gonna talk about how to make your own custom cake toppers for any kind of party that you might be throwing. Now, don't think that you're gonna be limited just to cake toppers. The things that we're gonna talk about here today are techniques you can use to make table decorations, you know, things, anything that stands up, or you can use them to make cupcake toppers or other types of things. A lot of what we're going to show is similar to what you've seen in the ornament video. So that's something that to keep in mind if you need a little refresher on some of these techniques and how they work. I would check out the ornament version of Easel Live, and that'll help walk you through a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today here as well. So one of the things I want to talk about first is the material that we're going to be using. It's material we haven't really talked about a lot before, but we are going to be using acrylic today. And acrylic can be a little tough to carve at times if you're kind of new to it. So we have a few tips we want to share with you in order to make the best out of your acrylic carving experience. One thing I would suggest doing is getting your hands on some upcut bits if possible. Upcut bits are great for acrylic because they will pull the chips up and away out of the material, which is really important when you're working with plastics because you don't want that plastic to melt and get all gunked up on the end of your spindle. So using an upcut bit is really good for this. We have used successfully here, we've been able to use 1/16 inch and 1/8 inch bits with our acrylic. I would stick to the largest bit possible. You know, like any kind of carving, the larger the bit you can use, the faster your jobs are going to be, the less likely you can use to break a bit. So if possible, I try to use an 1/8 inch bit, but for some of the more intricate designs I'm sure you're looking to do, a 16 inch bit should work fine. Another thing to keep in mind with acrylic is it is a very brittle material. Here's a sample of one of the ones here. So it is a plastic, so it is very brittle. And we found that using tape isn't always the best way to go with acrylic because it just doesn't seem to hold down well enough. So what we did here on our project is we used tabs to hold our pieces in place while carving. And we used a really thin tab, so not very tall, but really thin so that it's just enough to hold the material in place, but not so much that it's going to be hard to snap off when you're done carving. So the advantage of using the thin material is that you're able to just go right in and sort of pop those off really quickly and not damage the piece when it's finished. So this here is this is our Kiwi Acrylic. It's a really cool, like kind of a little bit translucent piece of acrylic that's really nice to play with. And I had used this earlier to make some little plant cupcake toppers. So that just like these little seedling sprouts. I was gonna throw a little garden party and I thought these would look cute sticking out of chocolate cupcakes, kind of like their little plants coming out of the ground. So if eating dirt is something you're into, you'd probably be really turned on by these cupcakes. But either way, I just thought it was a cute little decoration. So that's kind of a cool little thing that I made with the Kiwi Acrylic. But we've got tons of different colors in acrylic, and that's what makes acrylic such a great choice for this particular project. So one of the other materials, we have some marbled acrylic that's got a really cool pattern on it that really plays nicely in the light, as you can kind of tell from the glare here. But it's got this really nice pattern on it that's good for fancier type of events. We've also got this gold metallic acrylic. The metallic actually comes in a few different colors as well. And it too has a really nice like sort of shimmer to it that's really, really kind of elevates everything to a nicer, fancier level. And we've also got one of our popular is also the mirrored acrylic. So you can see here everything in the background of the room. But the mirrored acrylic is a really kind of funky material to play with. You can use it to just straight up make a mirror, which is, you know, you can see it acts exactly like a mirror. One thing to keep in mind with the mirrored acrylic is it is only mirrored on one side. So you'll want to make sure that the design you make is fit to work with the mirrored side of it, not the back side. And last but not least, everyone's favorite, we have some glitter acrylic in a lot of different colors. So feel free to check out our site for a bunch of different acrylic options. You'll be amazed at how many different colors and things out there of acrylic. The other thing I would keep in mind with the acrylic is it can be a little bit loud. So just kind of brace yourself for that when you're getting into carving it. But the reason I'd suggest using acrylic over some of the other materials is it is safe to use in food. So it won't leach in food or liquids like other plastics will. So that's another great thing to keep in mind when you're trying to figure out how to implement your designs into something that can be used then with food. So it is safe to use with food. I wouldn't obviously, leave it in a drink for a couple days, but as long as you're not doing that, you should be totally fine and safe to use it. So I was trying to think of a great project to do for today. And one of the things that came to mind was my dad's birthday. My dad's birthday is the end of this month, and he's a big baseball fan. It's also baseball season, so that works out really well. And I'm going to show you guys today how to make this little dad cake topper that I carved. And it's got my dad's name in it. It's on a little baseball. And I'm going to put it in his birthday cake when I see him later this month. So this was made with that white marbled acrylic. You can see it's got some nice little snazziness to it. So I'm going to get into Easel and show you guys how to make a cupcake or a cake topper. So bear with me 1 minute here as I log into Easel and we'll get to work. So before I show you that, I just want to show you guys too, here's all the acrylics on our site. You can just go up here to materials and acrylics. You can search by whatever color you're looking for or a particular type, if you really want the metallic or you really want the glitter. And then there's a couple more different options here that work with a ton of different settings. So keep these all in mind, lots of different options. So in order to get this project started, I'm going to go up here into projects. And you can see now if you're ever having trouble finding an Easel Live video, you can access them all from the projects page on our website. So we'll click in here and get to the projects. And we've got all the old Easel Lives stored in here. And we're going to get going here with the next Easel Live, which is the Cake Topper Party Pack. And I'm going to go ahead and just open up this project in Easel. So what I'm going to do, this is a project that my colleague Sam here made, and it's got the template for the cake topper, which is exactly the same one that I used to make my dad baseball cupcake or a cake stand. And then we've also got down here in our work pieces, we've got the drink stirrer. So we can use this to make a little drink stirrer swizzle stick. I'll show you how to do that as well. So what's great about these new work pieces that we have down here, if you're having trouble finding this in Easel, there's this little drop down pop-up menu. So you can just feel free, open up the project pack from our site and use the different work pieces to make whichever one you'd like. We've also got a sample in here of our Grow Girl one to go with our garden party theme. You can always carve this as well, but you can also access the templates down here in the different work pieces. So let's go ahead and I'm going to copy this over to my Easel project to get started. All right, so you can see here that I'm able to open up all of these different work pieces now directly from copying that project. And just to make things easy, I'm going to go ahead and set up my project right now. So I'm going to call this Dad's Baseball Cake Topper, and I'll just rename the project that so I can find it later. And I'll go over here, I'll just double check these settings. I've got the cast acrylics selected, so that's good. And for this project, I'm going to change my bit size to an 1/8 inch because I know I'm going to be able to use that with my 1/8 inch. You can see here that these are all the upcut settings as well. So you can see here from this little question pop-up that these are good to use for plastics like acrylic. So we're going to go ahead and keep that. And I was able to measure my material before I started, and it's a little bit thicker than an 1/8 inch, so I'm just going to go ahead and change those settings. Remember, it's really important to use a set of calipers when you are designing an easel so that you can make sure that everything that you've got is going to carve out correctly the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this template here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this down. And I tried importing an icon of a baseball, and it didn't really work out that well. One of the things that I was having trouble with was whenever I would change my design to go from the cake topper to the drink stirrer, I would find that I had to use a smaller and smaller bit each time because of the way the imported images worked. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a baseball really quickly in Easel. So to do that, I'm just gonna pull a circle in here, and I'm gonna design it pretty large so I can make sure I know what I'm doing. And I'll set it to an outline. And then I'm gonna use the pen tool just to draw a really quick and simple baseball shape. So I'll use this to edit the points here, and I'll just make this like the stitches on the baseball. So there's one. And then I'll just use this the pen tool here to draw these little stitches in. So one thing that's nice, I'm just using Command V or Command C and Command V or Control C and Control V on a PC to just copy and paste these pieces over. And I'm just gonna go ahead and design my baseball really quickly. And you can see when I've got the pieces selected, I can rotate them as well. And that'll make sure that I get that nice curvature. So that looks pretty good for now. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and select these pieces. If you hit Shift on your keyboard while you click, you can deselect or select shapes. So in this case, I just wanna copy over this stitching here and move it over to this side. And then I'm gonna just rotate it so that the stitching is going the other way. That kind of looks like a baseball. So now that I've got that all set, I'm gonna go ahead and add in my text. So for this, I'm gonna use the Homestead text because I thought that was a nice sort of sporty text. And in this case, I'm gonna write Dad because he's my dad. And before I get everything placed and aligned, I'm just gonna kind of put this here and use it for scale to try to figure out, you know, what's gonna look good on here. So I'll just go ahead and I think that should be a pretty good size. Now the next app I'm going to use is one that I don't think we've talked about before, but either way, it's still a great app to know about. I'll go up here into the apps menu. Before you do that, make sure you have the item selected that you wanna use the Exploder app with. So I'll select my text and I'll go up here to apps and I'll scroll on down to Exploder. So essentially what the Exploder does is it breaks up shapes into different components, and it allows me to go ahead and import them as individual items. So I can break up my text and move around each individual letter instead of moving the three letters together all at once. Now, one other cool thing about the Exploder app is if necessary, you can change the gap between the letters, which can be helpful. In this case, I'm going to be doing a little bit of adjusting inside Easel, so this doesn't matter too much for me right now, but it is good to know about this feature if you're doing something that requires specific spacing. So I'm gonna go ahead and import these, and you can see now that I've got these shapes as individual pieces. So I can click on each individual letter and use it that way, which is great. Which means I don't need this text anymore, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. All right, so I'm gonna pull these up here, and I wanna make sure that my A is directly aligned at the top of my circle. So I'll go ahead, I'll use the Align tool to center those. And then I'm gonna move these down here, and just for a little extra fun, I'm just gonna go ahead and rotate the D's on both sides. So I can just use the little turner here at the top to rotate these. If you wanna be really exact, you can always use the rotation and set a specific angle over here. And one thing to keep in mind, kind of like when we were designing the ornaments, is we're gonna design everything first, because right now you can see if I carve this out, it isn't exactly going to look the way that I want it to look. You can see it's gonna carve the letters out, which is not what I want. I want to carve around the letters. But the reason it's nice to design in this type of way is it allows me to make sure that all my pieces are going to be connected and that there's not gonna be any gaps that might cause the piece to fall apart. So I'll go ahead, I'm gonna set everything to cut all the way through for right now, just to make sure that I can get everybody lined up properly and see exactly what it looks like. So now, let's see, it's still using tabs. I don't wanna use tabs on that. All right, so now you can see, I can look at my shape over here in the preview pane, and I can see that you know, the letters are attached well to the circle here, and even though the middle part of the D and the A are going to fall out, that's gonna be okay because it's still gonna give me the shape that I wanna see. So now that I know that that all looks good, I'm gonna bring everything over here and I'm gonna set it on top of my cake topper just to get a sense of how everything lines up. So one other thing that I'm going to do really quickly before I do this is I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab all these elements and I'm going to copy them and move them over here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm hoping to save these same items to use in my swizzle stick later. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to cut of 0. That way it doesn't impact my carving time. So for instance, if I go over here and I hit simulate now, gotta make it a little smaller. If I go over here and hit simulate, you can see that it's only going to carve the design I have over here. Whereas if I still had these set to a depth, that's going to show up in my rendering. So the machine is trying to carve the pieces that are off of my workpiece. So I'm going to make sure that everything that I don't want to carve is set to 0 so that I don't have to worry about it right now. All right, so now that I've got that all done, I want to go ahead and I want to combine all of these shapes together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these pieces, but one thing to keep in mind is that the pen tool shapes are not going to render correctly when I try to combine them. So instead of trying to combine them with this shape, I'm going to go ahead and just leave them off of my selection. So in this case, I'm going to select just the text and the circle, and then also select the cake top or bottom. So now I'm going to go ahead and combine all of these items by going up here to Edit, Combine, and then I'm going to set the entire thing to an outline. All right, so you can see here now when I render this, everything is going to be done correctly so that I'm able to connect all these shapes together. So just to kind of give you a sense of what that looks like, you can see how it looks here on the preview pane. And if you look at my cake topper, it's exactly the same way. So my letters are all connected here at the top where the top of the circle was, and these stitches are still going to carve out of this whole circle. So this is kind of one of those tricky concepts when it comes to designing and then switching things up and making things an outline when you're trying to get everything finalized. So I would suggest trying to design everything in the fill setting first so that you can get a really good sense of how things are going to look when they carve out, and then do the combine feature and set everything to an outline. Some of the shapes are going to be a little bit strange perhaps, and you'll find a couple of weird things happen with shapes that are inside of other shapes and things like that, but for the most part, you should be able to get your design to work correctly. If you have any troubles trying to replicate something in Easel, feel free to reach out to us at help@inventables.com, and we'll be happy to help you figure out how to do that. So this is exactly the same thing that I just made in Easel, and you can kind of see how the final product looks now. Now I just want to show you one other thing in Easel. So let me get back in there and I'll show you what I can do now with this design. So now that we're back in here, one important thing to note is that this shape did add tabs for me. Tabs are these little yellow pieces here that I can move around. And I do want to use tabs, like I was saying, because of the acrylic. So you can go ahead and pull the tabs wherever you'd like them to be. I would suggest trying to keep tabs on flat areas because it will make them a lot easier to finish the project overall. So I'm just going to go ahead and move these to a couple different places, try to make it easy for me to finish up the project later. And like I was saying, is we want to use thin tabs with this particular material because it keeps it in place, but it also makes it easier to remove when they're done. So what I found worked for me is I actually just cut this height in half. So I made it 0.040 inches, and it just made the tabs a little bit thinner. So you can see now when I go to simulate this design, and if I hide my material here, you can see that of all the tool paths that the machine's gonna make, it's just going to leave a shorter tab here for the tabs so that it won't be as much material that I'll have to remove when the project is finished. So that is one of my cake toppers here, which is good. And I'm going to show you now one reason why it's important to use the pen tool if you're looking to design your own project. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select these objects again, and I'm going to copy them just using Command-C on my keyboard. You can also go up here and go to copy if you'd like. And I'm going to open up the drink stirrer project here and paste these objects back in. So now when I've got these all in place, I'm gonna go ahead and take the text off of this, and I'm just gonna make some baseball drink stirrers. Now, one thing you might notice is that this project is set to be used with a 1/16 inch bit, which is probably better for a drink stirrer anyways. But watch what happens when I change it to an 1/8 inch. You see how the lines of my baseball changed? That's because I drew this in Easel with the pen tool, which means that the thickness of these strokes is always going to equal the same as the width of my bit that I use. That's really helpful when I go from making a large shape, like the cake topper, to now making a much smaller shape, like my drink stirrer. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll shrink this down, and I'll put it on top of the swizzle stick here. And again, I just wanna make sure that this is centered over the stick part. So I'll use the align tool and slide that into place. And now again, I'm gonna combine everything except the stitches because the stitches were drawn with the pen tool. So I'll go ahead, I'll select the circle and the stick. I'll go ahead and go to combine, and I'll set everything to an outline. And there you have it. Now I have a drink stick. So another thing I can do now, I can just go ahead and copy and paste these and try to get as much of my material used up as possible. So that's something that's good to know. You can also, then go ahead and just copy, paste, and cut out a whole bunch of little drink sticks. So that's a really quick and easy way to, the work pieces make this really, really great, you guys, because you can quickly replicate the same design. And as long as you make sure you save something off to the side before you combine everything. Remember, that's really important. Make sure to do this part before you combine your shape. You can then take the same design, make it a swizzle stick, make it a cake topper, make little cupcake toppers. You can also change this and interlock a base to make it so that it can stand up in the air. So one example of that, we have this little Grow Girl sign for our cake topper that we made out of wood, just to kind of play around with that. And you can see this is just an interlock half circle that we then, we used the interlocker app and added a shape to the bottom before we combined, and then use the interlocker app to just go ahead and make this little combine feature. And now I can set this on a table. So this is really great if you're looking to make little signs to go along with your party, maybe wedding table numbers or something like that. So keep in mind that, even though, yes, we're making cake toppers today, you can take these same concepts and implement them in a lot of different ways to make a lot of cool different things. So that's all we have for you guys today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at helpinventables.com. We'll be happy to help answer any questions you might have about this project or any of the other projects that you're working on. And we'd love to see what kind of parties you guys are throwing. So please tag us on social media at #Inventables so we can see what you're making. If you haven't entered the mosaic tile challenge yet, I encourage you to check out that Easel Live and add into our mosaic tile project so that you can get that $5 Inventables gift card. So again, that's all we have for you today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at helpinventables.com. Don't forget to tag us on Instagram with #Inventables, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us.